My name is Soltahr Tiv-Amanda. I graduated in 1999 from the Transpersonal Counseling Psychology program. And before I came to Naropa, I was already on a spirit. These are getting on my nerves. I was already on sort of a spiritual journey, and that journey began with my teacher, Gary Moonhawk Butler Presente, and he taught me about healing. He was one of the greatest healers I've never known. And I didn't know him that well, actually. He was amazing. He was called by doctors sometimes to go to surgeries and meet with people before so that they would heal quickly afterwards. But he wasn't known. You can look him up. His last deal was dealing with crystal skulls. He passed away back in 2012, I believe. And I was sad I didn't know when he passed, but strangely enough, I still work with him in the world of the ancestors, and he's still a teacher for me. My other experience before coming here was, and it's a funny thing, a spiritual journey, because it's never, you don't just walk a line and you go, oh, this thing along the way. It's a circular thing, and it's windy and treacherous and fun, and it changes, and you walk through pathways and gateways, and you never know where you're going to end up next. So the next part of my journey was being, after being around Gary, also becoming involved with the Colorado pagan community of all places, which was interesting for me, and being able on several occasions to meet Starhawk, who many of you have probably heard of, who taught me what it means to be a witch. And I claim that word, and many of my ancestors claim that word. And, this time of year, whatever. No warts on the nose, at least not yet. Some on my feet, though, but. So that was a part of the journey I'd already walked before I got here. And doing Reiki and being a part of the pagan community, I became aware that there was something about healing that I wasn't getting. And so I remember working with a woman who was doing Reiki with her, and she was like, there's this stuff around my father coming up. And I was like, I got nothing for you. All I got is my hands and some Reiki. I don't know what to do. And somehow I started looking for a graduate program. And I ended up here at Naropa, as many of us obviously have, because here we are. That's why we're here, right? Sorry, that was my elder self just kicked in for a moment. It's like, oh, we're here. So, I was much younger when I came here, but, I've grown older in the time that I've been gone. 25 years is a long time. But anyway, during my journey here, I remember being aware during one of my counseling relationship classes that there was no mention of what it's like to work with people of other cultures. And I remember telling my teacher at the time, and I won't mention his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but he got all red in the face, and he said, well, we don't have time for that. And I said, but why don't we have time to talk about how we work with people of other cultures? And so I marched my happy ass over to the chair's office of the department at that time, Barbara Carter, who was out here in the audience. And Barbara, I explained the situation, and she said, well, let's talk about that. And in her quirky, funny way, we managed to talk about it and create a committee of people. And out of that committee, with some students, staff, and other people, a class was born. It was very small. It was a 1-credit class, which of course any of you might know that that's kind of a joke, but it was a start. And so I ended up teaching that class, in fact, for a number of years. And it was quite a learning experience. Out of that class, I ended up, in the middle of doing that teaching, I ended up coming to be a part of and being asked to facilitate a group for transgender people. And I remember, the woman who asked me was someone who had been facilitating it previously, and I was like, why me? And she said, because Soltahr, you have that understanding that there's more to counseling and relationships than just working with people of a certain race. I mean, we all know that the DSM was written by white people for white people. I'm sorry, but it doesn't cover the breadth of experiences that people have. Gender dysphoria does not begin to explain what's going on for people whose bodies don't feel like they fit them. And so, and I, my own self, I worked with a lot of body dysmorphia. I worked with, and occasionally still do, it's like, oh God, I'm in here. And but it's that idea and understanding that we do have to be able to learn to work with difference and learn to work with people who are not like us. And if we're not able to do that, we shouldn't be doing this work, and we shouldn't be counseling and helping people, because if you can't do it with knowledge of their culture, with knowledge of their history. Thank you, Dr. Jen Milan, who wrote a beautiful book in the last few years called Decolonizing Therapy. And if you're a therapist, you better damn well read it, because it helps you to understand that therapy is not this, oh, I need to pathologize this individual sitting in front of me. It's not about that. It's about their history. And I'm not talking just their personal history. It's the history of their people and their culture and their ancestors and all that surrounds them, that comes into your room with them. They cannot and should not be asked to leave that outside. So learn to work with all that. Thank you, Dr. Jen. Also, Resma Menachem, I worked with him for a few months learning how to be somatically abolished. No, that's not the word. Doing somatic abolitionism work and learning myself, for me and myself, how to work with when racism comes up, which was, and I have to say it, and I want to be real and I want to be truthful, it was a very large experience that I had here at Naropa. And I left here with a sense of bittersweetness when I left. There was a sweetness for me of that I made it through this. And the bitterness was that I had to struggle. And I had many tears and blood and pain, because I met with microaggressions and so much, turning their eyes away and not wanting to see my color, my whole being. And so, there's some gratitude with being able to stand here and say that. At the time, I didn't have the breadth of experiences that I've had since that time. So let me go through a few of those experiences, because they're people who, some of whom are ancestors and some of whom were great teachers for me. I went to Pine Ridge for years, and I took supplies, and I took things that people needed there. And I met a warrior woman by the name of Aloha Sarah Martinez. And Aloha taught me the plight of the Native American people in a way I did not understand. And it was some of the most powerful time of my life. I learned about the Indian schools, and I learned about how that Pine Ridge itself is one of the poorest places in the middle of this country. And those are the first people of this country. Those are the First Nations. And they are now struggling with meth. And Aloha gave up her life fighting for meth. She did die of COVID, but she worked really tirelessly, endlessly, and I believe that it had to do with that work. Sekou Kambui came through town in 2015. Sekou was a former Black Panther who was spent 40 years in prison. They released him after 40 years because he had cancer, probably because they didn't want to have to take care of him after that. But he was in there for 40 years for a crime that he did not commit, other than simply being a Black Panther. Guns were planted in his car, and he was accused of killing people that he did not kill. And 40 years, and he came out. The word we use for him in our community is Baba, that's teacher. He learned so much being incarcerated, and a large part of that time being in isolation in prison. Speaking of prison, one of the other people that I learned much from was a man named Richard John Canaan, who's here in the audience, who was my partner for a number of years, who went to prison for what he believed in. And he taught me that sometimes what you believe in, if you speak up for it or if you put your body on the line, you have to pay consequences. But sometimes it's worth it, because then something maybe changes. I also then call upon Another interesting teacher who I met here at Naropa, Terry Keepers, who in this very campus taught a class in shamanism. And I was reintroduced to shamanism and realized that I had been involved with it for many lifetimes. And so I teach that now to many students, mostly people of color, bodies of culture, Black bodies, who want to learn. Because for one thing is that I don't charge $1 gazillion, and I don't make you go to some school in Big Sur to learn, because most people that I work with don't have that kind of money, and neither do I. And so I want people's spirits to be able to evolve and to be able to heal, and that's the work that I do. I call upon my personal ancestors, Dorothy Bass Spann and Marjorie Bass Bird and Francine Mabel Hayes, presente, women who raised me and taught me how to be. My own mother, who birthed me but couldn't take care of me because she was only 18, Nancy Sanford, presente. My own daughters, one of whom is here this evening, who taught me how to be a mother, and my grandbaby Luna, who taught me how to be an elder and a grandma. My great-great-great-great-grandmother that I got to journey to in Africa before colonizers and brutality took over. And I got to sit in the African village of my ancestors and hold babies, probably holding my great-great-great-grandmother. So shamanism to me is a very powerful tool, and it was a very powerful thing for me, a very deep learning and understanding that I learned here. Terry Keepers himself has also passed on. Terry Keepers, presente. And so I also speak of my great-great-grandmother, who, interestingly enough, I know I'm out of time, my great-great-grandmother, who actually had a number of children, 4 of whom stayed in the United States and 4 of whom went to Mexico. And this summer I had the great privilege to go to a class at the University of New Mexico on the lands of the Tiwa, where I live now, and learn about curanderismo. And what I didn't know until then, and they venerate this very highly there, is that the enslaved Africans who were put there in Mexico and those who escaped there brought their medicine. So the original question that I had when I began my journey of where did my African ancestors go? Where did their medicine go? Because I couldn't find it here. But I found it in curanderismo, and those amazing teachers, and some of whom I've started to be able to work with, taught me that that's where my ancestral medicine is, on Turtle Island. That's where it exists here for me. And I'm so very grateful to all the teachers of curanderismo presente. And so I don't want to just end with that, even though I'm out of time, and the woman there is sitting there going, go on, it's cool. I want to bring you all into this. I don't know why I'm still holding these. Gotta understand, I'm 69, right? I'll be 70 next year. So there's, I'm all hanging all in there. But what I'd like you all to do is we're going to do a little bit of a journey before we end, and that's what we're going to end on. And what I'd like you to do is to get comfortable in your seat. Get comfy. And I don't mean, sit up straight. I'm not doing the Naropa thing. We're not doing that right now. They did that earlier, right? So just sit comfortable. And I want you to take some deep breaths. Close your eyes. And I also want you to put your hand on your heart. And take some deep breaths and just let yourself feel relaxed and be aware of all the beings that we have been touched by going through these halls. All the beings, the people who, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, with all his failings and all of his pain, that Naropa still sweeps under the rug, and until they recognize that history, there will be problems here. And there's so much other historical pieces here that need to be acknowledged. And just feel those pains here, those journeys, those sadnesses, the anger, whatever it is that you felt and have felt here. And take a moment to call in from wherever they are in the world, whoever they are, call in your own ancestors. Call them in from whatever countries they come from, because they all matter, because as said before tonight, we're living in a very turbulent time. We're living in a time of great change and transformation. My Peruvian teacher, Freddie Puma Quispe Singoma, tells us that the eagle and the condor are already flying together. This isn't a going to, they already are. And that all of us who came to this school to learn, we are all from the stars. And the reason that we are here is to bring our light to this world. And if we're not doing that, if we're only doing to serve ourselves and to make money and to be famous, then we're missing the point. Because we came to this humble little institution and paid a lot of money. But we came here to bring our light and to have our light become much bigger so that we could go out into the world and be of service and to help bring our light to the world in all the various ways you've heard tonight and all the ways that all of you do that, because it's all important. And so as we call in our ancestors, be reminded that our own ancestors are the ones that we need at this very time. So I open the portal, and as you sit there, take a moment. You can call them in if you wish. Call in names, countries. If you didn't know names, call them in. And you can speak them out loud if you wish. I call in all the people who are dying in wars all over this planet, in Palestine, in Congo, in Latin America. And I call in all the people who are touched and harmed by wars. May they be presente. And if you don't wish to speak out names, that's fine. But just know that the portal is open right now and all of your ancestors are here in this room. Nadi, presente. 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 And if you can see their faces, or you can feel their image, or you can feel their form around you, ask them some questions. Ask them what do we need to do right now? And let them tell you if they will. And maybe not tonight. Maybe it's in your dreams. Maybe it's in the people that you meet. Because our teachers are many. They're not just one. As the woman before me spoke of, our teachers are the earth. Mother Earth, Pachamama, and the sky, and the sun, and the moon, and all the plants that bring medicine, and the waters, and the wind, and the fire. So in this moment, find your own fire internally. And let your ancestors be around you in the coming days, because it is their time. In a few days, we'll be celebrating, depending on what you believe, it'll be All Souls Day, All Saints Day, Dia de los Muertos, Halloween, Samhain, whatever holiday you celebrate. This is a time to call in your ancestors and ask them, what do I need? What do you need from me? What can we do in this crazy, turbulent time to make this world a better place? And we want you to help us, to be here around us, because we're trying so hard to bring through the change that's needed. Thank you. Thank you for this evening. Thank you for coming. I will now close the portal, because those of us who do magical work know you don't leave portals open. Weird things can happen when you do that. I've seen them. Thank you all. I hope that over the coming days, during this time with your comadres and people that you know, that you will commiserate and say, what can we do? How can we come together? How can we bring love back into this world, into this work, into all that we are doing? Because if we don't do it, nobody can. We're the ones that are the star people. We're the ones that all the lights came into, and we came with light. Don't ever forget that. Remember who you are. Never forget each every one of you and all those people out there. We're all important. And that's the lesson, and that's the importance. Thank you.